Hi, and welcome to another episode of You Haven't Seen What? A married couple's quest to rectify the wrongs of their partner never seeing culturally relevant movies. I'm Joelle, and that over there is my husband, Parry. What the hell are you doing?
Oh, sorry. I was just really distracted. I wanted orange juice really badly for some reason after watching this movie. You know what? It must have been Donald Sutherland's voice, as he is the voice of, I forget, one of the orange juice companies, but
You're
just
so
really needed
old
some
right
orange
now.
juice. So.
You're so old.
Well, at least it was helping me forget that he was President Snow.
I mean, okay, whatever. However you want to slice it, he was amazing. So does it really matter?
So based on that, I'm sure that everyone has guessed what movie we're talking about this week because it's such a well-known one.
I'm sure they haven't because it is not a well-known one. It is one that I have seen, but one that you had not seen.
One that I had barely heard of, quite honestly, and tragically.
Tragically, because it's a Neil Simon-based movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Number two, what you need to know also is that Marsha Mason is in it, right? So that's pretty big. And you've got Donald Sutherland and Jason Robards, and it's the film debut of Matthew Broderick.
Mm-hmm. Indeed it is.
Yeah, so not a lot of people know what movie we're talking about. In fact, I don't even think we've said the title.
We have not yet said the title because I think that just everyone would know it by now.
No. Stop telling people lies.
Well, would you like to tell us what this movie is, being as you are the one who introduced me to it?
Sure. It is Max Dugan Returns.
Not a sequel.
Not a sequel.
There was not a movie called Max Dugan.
No, there was not.
Because then that would make this Max Dugan, The Revenge.
You're ridiculous. It's not like some STD coming back from the crypt. I don't understand.
Well, I just want to see him take on the mob, because there's a whole, mob story in the background of this movie, and I'd like to see him go and hunt down all the people who gypped him out of his money in the first place.
But he took back his money.
He did, but they're still after him. But hey, we're jumping way ahead of ourselves here.
Are we? Oh,
yes.
Normally that's your deal, not mine.
It is, but before we get going, I want to make a quick jump to the side.
Oh, Jesus.
Because, hey,
fucking derailing us already. God damn it.
I am really good at that, but you know what? I love derailing us for cake. And I just wanted to give a quick mention of the cake bar show that we were at in Long Beach recently because
we were sponsors of the Cake Bar show. Oh, yeah. We won Prom King and Queen.
It was an 80s theme, and it was the first time in my life I had ever been anything close to a prom king. And that I got to go home with the prom queen. So it was a hell of a night.
There you go. It was a heck of a night and a really wonderful show. And we actually, we should post a couple of pictures on our Instagram. So I'll make sure I put that up on our Instagram of all these cakes that they had and cake pops and treats and contests that they had, really just based around 80s movies and TV shows. And it was really amazing.
All 80s themed cookies and cakes in the competition. And if you ever wanted to see the saddest scene from Neverending Story rendered in a cake, they had it.
And it was awesome. So Joyce and Cass, you guys should feel really proud of yourselves. It was an awesome, awesome show. And for more info, I think we actually have them tagged on a couple of posts already on Instagram. But you can check out our Instagram at You Haven't Seen What and check those out there.
And there were some other folks we met there that we're going to mention in upcoming episodes. But I feel like we need to move forward with Max Dugan. But I do want to mention, when you see that photo of me in my prom king outfit, that is called an opposite, and you'll get what I mean when you look at the picture. Just look up opposites or opposite.
Are you sure that's not already on our
It
Instagram?
may be, but if you haven't already seen it, check out our social media and check out opposite. You'll want one too. I guarantee it.
Oh, you're right. I don't have one up of us. Oh, that's a miss. All right, I'll put one up of us. But I do have the Cake Bar show and Cass and Joyce's tags on there too.
Well, it'll fit right in with us discussing this 1983 classic, or should have been a classic, Max Dugan Returns.
Max Dugan Returns. So I have a synopsis. Do you have a synopsis?
Well, being as you showed it to me, it was your turn.
My turn.
Because, I always do the...
Sure, you always
I'm
do
so good at writing
You're
those.
You're so amazing at writing those on time and not having me wait for a bajillion years.
I'm very brief.
Yeah, lies.
But hey, I have a good, bad, and ugly all prepared this week.
Oh my God, miracles.
Indeed it is.
Freaking preparedness. This is what happens when I feed him before we podcast. Okay, so here we go. My synopsis is pretty short. It says, what do you do when your grandpa returns from the dead and wants to spend $687,000 on you? You ask no questions and welcome him back with open arms. Of course, right?
That's if he tells you he is your grandfather.
Semantics.
Yeah, and we'll get into all that too.
Exactly. And then I had a favorite quote. Do you have a favorite quote? Do we know what the podcast title is going to be?
You know, one of the wonderful things about this movie is because it's Neil Simon, who is a master of these great little interactions between characters. There were a ton of great lines in this movie, and they were delivered so wonderfully. And I had many. I have like 2 pages that I wrote down of lines.
No, brevity.
But I do have.
You have one?
I do. I think that the one that sums it up for me is, I'd stick to lying. So far, you're doing great.
Huh. I think there's an interaction that's very similar to that, which is very interesting. It's Brian, the cop, says, tell me something. Do you think I'm corrupt? And Nora, the woman he's dating and the mom, says, aren't we all just a little bit? It's pretty similar.
It is a wonderful line. I just have trouble putting 2 people talking into our iTunes summary, and so I always choose a one line. But that is a good one. And there were a lot
Tell me something. Do you think I'm corrupt? See, that's one
that could
line.
be a good one. That could be a good one. One of my other favorites that I was real close to using was, if I didn't abandon you, God only knows what would have happened to you.
Yes, Max Dugan. Thanks. So I think we actually, for this one, we almost need to give an overview because I don't know if everyone's going to watch this movie, although you should. I think it's a Neil Simon, and I know growing up for me, I watched a ton of Neil Simon movies. I didn't necessarily get to see the play so much, but I did watch a ton of Neil Simon movies. Biloxi Blues and Brighton Beach Memoirs, and is it Funny Girl? Is that right?
Goodbye Girl.
Goodbye Girl.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, mixing up Mason and Barbara. That's probably bad. So I did watch a ton of Neil Simon stuff growing up, and he was just so prolific.
Very much so. And though this is an original screenplay meant only to be filmed, it does feel very much like a stage production. It has the feel of something that has been adapted, as many of his works do, because most of them were stage plays as well.
Right. Well, this wasn't meant to be a stage play, though. It was meant to be a movie.
Right. It just, there are certain...
It could work.
Yeah.
And also just the size of the cast. It really wasn't a large cast.
No.
In fact, it was a pretty small cast, and really the gist of it is that essentially you have a widowed single mother, Nora, aka Marsha Mason,
a very overworked teacher,
very overworked, widowed mom, single mom, raising Matthew Broderick, Michael, right? So in the movie, and
they are in dire financial straits because, as Max Dugan says, the teaching profession doesn't afford many luxuries, does it?
No. So they, have a crappy car. They only have one car. You can tell she's just running around. She's not getting any sleep. He is your typical teenager, a little rebellious, not so much. It's very pre-Ferris. Like, you can see where Ferris was inspired from, and it really is from this movie.
There are flashes of Ferris.
Yeah. So if for no reason at all, it's almost like you get a pre-Ferris view, which I actually did because I did see this before Ferris. So I think this movie and I think this movie and Brighton Beach Biloxi Blues are what made me really love Matthew Broderick even before Ferris.
What this movie made me realize when I went and looked up his filmography is that Ferris Bueller, the role was sort of an anomaly for Matthew Broderick. He did not usually play the cool, slick, kind of smarmy guy. He usually played sort of a dorky guy who had a little bit of a cool side.
Yes.
But his characters leaned more toward the dorky. Now, the beauty of Ferris Bueller's character is that he's popular and slick, but he's a bit of a dork, a little bit. But it's the reverse in most of his roles, that he's more of a dork.
Yes.
And in this role, he's sort of growing up too fast because he's having to take care of himself a lot because his mother's
his mom.
overworked, and he's starting to get in with a bad crowd. And
one of which is Kiefer Sutherland.
Oh, you gave away my biggie.
Sorry, sucker. You waited too long. Stay long. Play wrong.
Production notes.
Well, okay. Or you can fill them in.
See, I thought I was going to surprise you with that one. This was the...
surprise me about my movie?
I know.
Really?
The first role of not only Matthew Broderick, but Kiefer as well.
Yes.
And with his father.
The first time he's with his father, Donald Sutherland.
But not playing the son of Kiefer Sutherland's character, who has a son in the movie.
They never play the sons.
No, but I just thought it would just be such an obvious thing to do.
Nah, because Brian, you want to believe that the cop... Oh, anyway. back to deciphering some
new
of
mic
this out.
stands we're testing out, and lots of talking with hands. Even though that doesn't translate to pod, it does tend to whack the stands around a little bit, so we might have to readjust these.
Maybe. So back to the story a little bit. So you've got this teacher and you've got her son, and then in cuts this stranger basically in the middle of the night who happens to be her father. So Nora's father, Michael's grandfather. And
comes in on a rainy LA night because there are so many of those.
Rainy, super rainy.
Although
it's
at Venice Beach. I don't know. Maybe it was that 1 week in January when it rains.
Maybe. So he comes in and he basically says, "Hey, I'm dying. I have like 6 months left to live, and I want to spend all this money on you that I've been ciphering off from the mob and the casinos."
Because they eminent domained his land that he had been holding on to. He wouldn't sell to the casino, and they took it. And through, political channels, some mob people took his land. And so he worked at one of their casinos and siphoned off $667,000, I believe?
687.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was shorting him a couple thou.
Yeah, just a couple. Just 20. $20,000, no big deal
Well,
there. It's like a chunk of my student loan.
And we're talking, and this is $1983
yeah,
here.
So this is like huge. This is like mega money right here.
I mean, that's when when you
can you imagine if you invested that money in Apple? Like how ridiculous it would have been.
Don't hurt me. You know about my Apple stock story.
All right, hush. You'll be fine. Stay long, play wrong.
Oh, it is a sad story of missed opportunity.
Life is a sad story of missed opportunity. And Neil Simon captures that in Max Dugan Returns.
Oh, beautiful segue.
Thank you so much. I'm trying not to derail us so bad. So stop drinking on the mic. This is worse than Swedish Fish, motherfucker. Like, this is not okay.
I think I'm selling a lot of beverages right now by, getting influencing people with the drinking sounds.
Ridiculous. You're just annoying people. That's rude. They couldn't hear when I was eating the Swedish Fish. Anyway. Yes. Grandpa comes to save the day. Nora says, "No, Dad, you can't tell Michael that you're his grandfather. That's not cool. Take all the shit back that you bought us. I don't care." Michael's like, "Whoever the fuck this guy is, he's cool. He's buying shit. We got new cars. Cars were stolen." That's where the cop comes in. The cop starts to date Nora and then starts to get really suspicious of Mr. What the fuck did they call him? Mr. Wittgenstein? Wittgenstein.
Yes.
Right.
After a philosopher.
But no, Mr. Wittgenstein is really Max Dugan, is really Michael's grandfather. Which...
No.
What? What are you talking about? There's two different names that they call him.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Okay. So... long story short is that now the cop is on Grandpa's trail, right? So what does Nora do? Nora's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, man. This is whatever. Like, I don't know. And she really sort of has to choose between this new boyfriend who's actually taking care of her from day one and, her father who abandoned her as a child and doing the right thing or trying to figure out what the right thing is to do. And ensue movie.
And admittedly, it was a little bit... Pardon me. That's the problem.
That's what you get for drinking during the podcast.
That's the problem with, as Adam and Ben on The Greatest Gen would call it, podcast fluid. That is the downside, is the burping. But it was a little contrived in that the same day she would meet the detective and
Brian
be
Costello,
turned on by him.
Donald Sutherland.
Is the same day that her father would come back in her life, who is a
Jason Robards.
Yes, who is a reformed, not a reformed criminal so much. He did his time in prison for other criminal activities, but he has come back in with this stolen money, and so the mob, the police, everybody's after him. And so it's real responsible to come back into your family's life when you've got everyone wanting to kill you. But that convergence now, admittedly, in real life, sometimes things happen that way where they just overlap in a way you just couldn't script. But it did feel just a little too perfect that it all happened on the same day. But it was very stagey. It was very theatrical in that sense.
Yes, it's called a movie.
Yes.
It's allowed to be like that.
Indeed. The suspension of disbelief is not always so easy for me. But I'm not going to let that distract from the movie, because the truth is, well, first, let me say, why did you show me this movie, Joe?
Okay. I mean, I thought we'd wrap up with that. But
I thought
sure.
we asked that early.
No, we don't, but it's okay.
we can wrap up with that.
I mean, it's fine. So I showed you this movie because I think that for me, this is when I did fall in love with Matthew Broderick. I think this, and then when I found out it was Neil Simon, it just made so much sense to me why I fell in love with it. I think it's just a feel-good movie that's not fucking Disney, okay?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, hey, there's conflict, there's kind of a moral quandary / dilemma, and then there's an end result that sort of works out and is not so much like, oh, we did the right thing. It's
right.
more of a, hey, we sort of bent the rules, but not entirely, and we just maybe gave some time and then did the right thing, sort of. And really, that's really what life is sometimes. It's not always so black and white. They're just these shades of gray. And sometimes it's okay to live in a gray shade as long as you're leaning towards the right white shade, if that makes sense.
Sometimes life calls for a little moral ambiguity.
Little white lies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there is such a thing as extenuating circumstances. There is such a thing as context. And not everything is black and white. It would be wonderful if that were the world, but it isn't. And that's one of the things I really did enjoy about this, is that though, again, it's very much a movie in many ways, it does bring up some of those questions in life as to where do your responsibilities lie and your morals, and when are you sometimes willing to bend that a little bit for people you love and care about, or when it's not really hurting anyone who hasn't already hurt others, like the mobsters that he has ripped off, because they're not really hurting.
No, they're not really hurting.
They would just kill him to prove a point.
No, but it's about, he did something that was not correct and not within the bounds of the law, and he needs to actually go ahead and, talk about it regardless of if he's dying or not. It's just a moral quandary that actually solves out pretty well, I feel like.
She also doesn't want a bad example set for her son that you can steal large amounts of money and live high on life without having really worked for it. And so that's definitely a part of what they're trying to bring across there. But what I thought was great about it was that it's not so sickly sweet that it's going to give you cavities, and it's not edgy in the sense of trying too hard to be cool. It's got rough edges, I would say, in terms of the characters, and they're not all perfect people. And much like we were saying, that the decisions they have to make are not resolved in necessarily all perfect ways for everyone. Some might disagree with the decisions they make. And I thought that's what was nice about it, was it didn't resolve in a way where everybody goes, oh, they all did the right thing. It's like, well, depending on your point of view, they did the right thing.
Right. So that's Wow, that's a lot of what we're talking about, right?
And it
And
addresses so many themes too, like absentee parents, single parents,
wait,
aging
wait.
family members,
Go ahead.
regrets, um, just so many things about life.
Okay. Do you want to discuss those before we hit good, bad, and ugly?
Sure.
Okay. Parry, you have the floor.
Well, what I really like is the dynamic that's set immediately between Nora and Michael, and as mother and son, in that he's taking care of her as much as she's taking care of him. And he's starting to do things like at one point he's smoking in the kitchen while they're trying to get some kind of breakfast before they take off. And that they're the way they care for each other is set up really well. And I forget what a badass Donald Sutherland has been in some roles, because he was there are little touches that he does throughout that make him such a great character, like when he's fixing his tie, when he's coming in to take her statement about her stolen car, and but the scene where he brings her that little motorbike to ride on in the meantime, where she's trying to get another car, and they go off and they end up like stopping a criminal. He punches him out, and the way you can just see her reaction to it. And he is, not only is he a badass, but he is forward. He kisses her, and he says on the phone just shortly after that, now that we've got good night down, maybe we can start working on good morning, which is damn forward.
It's very slick.
He is. And there's even a line in there when she repeats something he says about, like, can I ride it? Meaning do I know how to ride it? But it sounds just like it's a little bit of innuendo. And like I said, he's a very slick character in it. And Robards is just fantastic in the way he plays people's emotions. He's super slick, and in a very hucksterish way. He's very good. He's a master manipulator. And the scenes where he's speaking with Nora, and she wants him to go, and he's saying, "Well, I would have enjoyed getting to know you," and just so the sort of forlorn look he gives her, but it's very subtle, and starts to leave, and she just can't let him go.
Okay, so I just think we should just go into good, bad, and ugly, because you just freaking ruined the shit out of my good.
Okay.
So yeah, I just ruined the crap out of my good. Which is basically this cast.
Mm-hmm.
So Marsha Mason and her dynamic with Donald Sutherland, and her dynamic with Jason Robards and Matthew Broderick, just all of them intertwining together. Nobody is not carrying their weight. And it's interesting because, of course, the adults are top billed, and then it says starring Matthew Broderick below.
Yeah.
But nobody really doesn't carry their weight in this movie. Everybody plays a part, and they play it really well.
And Sutherland and Robards only have one short scene together, but they are so good together in that scene that it's an extremely memorable exchange between them, because they're saying so much that they're not saying in the questions that they're asking and the way they're answering them, and just the body language. It's two acting masters doing so much with so little in terms of that scene.
Exactly.
Although I find it sad that Nora McPhee, Marsha Mason, she went on to do a lot, but I feel like she hasn't had the number and caliber of roles of some of the others, like Donald Sutherland and Matthew Broderick. And do you think it's because Hollywood's bias towards women, that they have a shorter shelf life in terms of the really juicy roles? Because often women will disappear much more quickly than men. Like Donald Sutherland has had just so many great roles, and same thing with Broderick. And I felt like Mason, she's had some good roles. I just don't know if she's been afforded some of the same.
So she wasn't initially an actress, is what I gathered. And then she started, acting briefly, and then hooked up with Neil Simon, and then started acting in his movies and plays and such. So after that, what I understood, a little bit of part of the reason why they divorced was that she was just going through a midlife type of crisis.
Oh, okay.
Not really understanding who she was. And then at some point, I think that she actually directed plays.
Yeah.
And then actually went off the grid entirely and did like an herbal wellness line, is what I understood.
Okay.
Not herbs like pot herbs, but herbs like herbs that grow out of the, well, I guess that grows out of the ground too.
So she joined the dark crystal side.
She
crystal,
went ahead into like nutrition, things like well-being and stuff like that. And then I'm not sure what she's doing quite now, but I feel like she's making a return into film, is what I understood. So, you know, for her, she did have a couple of really amazing roles. And, you know, after that marriage was sort of done, it's sort of like, well, who wants to cast Neil Simon's ex-wife? There's a whole host of different things. I mean,
yeah,
that can be construed in Hollywood. And she was of a different age, which, of course, we know in Hollywood, it's definitely biased that way in terms of, you know, us being a certain age and being a woman in Hollywood.
Yes.
Yeah. We hope that it's dissipating more now, with, you know, different character ensembles like Orange is the New Black, right? Where it's just a variety and diverse group of women. But you know, it's not. I
feel like age is often a factor too, that women are offered less roles as they age. Because, you know, someone like Sutherland, they consider he looks more distinguished as he gets older, but it seems like that is not the perception that right. women get in terms of the roles that they're offered. You know, suddenly, oh, you can no longer be a love interest. Now you're just the mother or the aunt or the grandmother or whatever, and you can no longer. Although, again, we are seeing some of that shift in some of the roles that are out there, but not enough and not quickly enough.
Correct. But, you know, that's a whole nother conversation.
Some of that is societal too, so
what was your good, now that we're derailing entirely?
My good was, I have to say it was Sutherland, because he made me forget that he was President Snow, because I am not like, you know, a Hunger Games fanatic, but I just thought he so embodied that character, just the supreme overconfidence and narcissism and megalomania that type of a dictator type president it just sums up and embodies.
Focus.
And he's just, you know, Sutherland has been working on the evil parts for a couple decades now. It seems like there was a shift at one point where he was no longer the cool, friendly, sexy detective. He suddenly shifted into being the evil general. And I think it was as soon as his hair went gray, suddenly he was the bad guy in almost everything. But he is, like I said, so perfect as Snow. But seeing him in this role, it was like he's so likable and so interesting as a character that it made me forget that. So I really enjoyed him in this tremendously.
And you're bad?
I have I was going to say slight, but I would say I have a more serious problem with movies that end in a way that you know that the next thing to happen is going to ruin the happy ending that they gave you in the movie. And my big question in the end, and there has to be a little setup to this, is that in the course of the movie, Nora's, right at the beginning, it's how she meets the detective, Sutherland.
His car is stolen.
It's her car, which is a Volvo that is beat to hell. You would really have to abuse a Volvo to get it to run that badly.
It's a POS.
And it's like one of those movie cartoon cars. I mean, it is over the top in bad shape. But there are some funny lines in the scene where she's giving a description of the car, such as it's got a dent in the fender. And the officer says, which one? She says, all of them. And it's wild who that cop is, the one you never see his face, the one who's taking her statement. He's been in a million things.
Okay, focus. Okay. Bad. Jesus.
So he gets her a car. He gets her a Mercedes, a brand new
No,
1982.
he doesn't get her a Mercedes.
No, I'm sorry. Max Dugan does,
Yeah, no. In between that, the cop gives her a moped,
which is
a
also
motorcycle,
stolen.
which then gets stolen.
Yeah, and Max Dugan.
Not that it was a stolen motorcycle, and then the cop gave it to her.
No, in fact, it was one he had bought that they said that they
on auction or something.
Yeah, for needy kids that probably stole it in the first place. Is what his line is. But so Dugan, her return.
So what's your bad?
Well, he buys her this Mercedes, and then in the end, when they think he has gone to Brazil to get away, he steals the Mercedes and drives off into it and is going to drive to Brazil. But how is she going to explain to Donald Sutherland that she no longer has this Mercedes? Because he knows she's lying about it being a rental. He knows that's bullshit. And
no, he already knows that he bought that for her. I feel like that's all implied.
Yeah.
Because he knows exactly who it is.
And I know that she's letting... But she
What is still your bad? I'm still not understanding.
She led Sutherland's detective to believe that he was flying to Brazil. And he's eventually going to try and catch him by calling the airports or something. But he's obviously driving now. And so how is she going to explain she's had this third vehicle stolen and him not get suspicious? I think he's going to get suspicious and he's going to try and close the roads.
You're overthinking the entire fucking ending. Just let it be. He drives off into the sunset. Life is fine. And the cops aren't going to catch him. Why are you overanalyzing the ending?
Or does the car actually fly off like the cartoon end that they have where it unfolds and all these dancers come out?
Okay, the car obviously does not fly off. Don't go off the rails. Oh my gosh.
Although, by the way, those
you are overthinking the most simplistic fucking movie ever in life.
Oh, I have more.
No.
I have more.
Oh my God. My migraine is coming back. I'm just letting you know that right now. That's our cat. That's Walter.
What did he knock down?
Whatever. Something knockdownable.
Yeah. So I just feel like after the end, there's going to be a scene of...
There's not. It's the
trouble.
End of the movie. You can go ahead and create your own whatever. Why does yours have to be doomsday? Why can't he get away? Or why can't he die in said car on the way to Brazil? Because he's going to die soon.
Well, I think it's suggested that he does get away from that little cartoon sequence of him having a drink and watching the dancers.
Right.
But does it work out between...
Who the fuck cares?
You've never thought about what happens to the characters after the movie ends?
Goddamn no.
Because
the movie is done. Playtime is over. Imagination done. We're finished.
But in the reality that's been created in the film,
I like to think that all that shit fucking works out. So I don't like to think that they either catch the bad guy or they don't catch the bad guy, or they get away or they don't get away. I like to think personally that it's all worked out in everyone's favor and life is fine.
Because I have no issue with ambiguous endings, but that one just seemed like it was leading to some serious trouble.
I think you overanalyze that, and maybe you should go back to your, how old would you have been? 9-year-old self, and then put a positive spin on it.
I probably would have asked that same question.
I know you probably would have, you psycho.
I was that kid.
You were that kid. Good Christ. Now that we've talked about it for fucking 10 minutes. Yeah, my bad is that there's no soundtrack. Moving on. What's your ugly?
Well, and there was no soundtrack to the music that was in the movie. There was barely any music in the movie.
Correct.
So our soundtrack smash is going to be a real short section on this podcast.
Yeah, Parry's going to talk about it. That's
it. My ugly, which you sort of already brought up, was I feel like the happiness in the film is sort of overshadowed by the fact that Marsha Mason and Neil Simon were in the process of divorcing.
Oh God, that's my ugly too. It's so bad that it's the last pairing of these two. It really is that Mason and Simon, I mean, who knows if it was better for them in the long run, right? Because no one really truly knows. Obviously, something was broken. You could feel a little heaviness in that. So I feel like that actually probably helped Mason's performance in terms of eroticism and sadness, because you could definitely see that she's torn and trying to figure it out in the movie. So that was really good. But yeah, I am sad to see them part, because I think that they actually did make a really great team that way.
And they finalized it before the premiere of the movie, I believe. And so
awkward.
So yeah, it was the
Dude, good thing it's not social media back then. I wonder how many people really knew that they were divorced like prior to that really happening.
Imagine having to read to act out the lines, the character created by someone that you are having this issue with.
It probably helped it
separating from.
I think it probably helped internal. I think it helped entirely.
I would agree. It did give her sort of a sadness and a tragicness that did work for that role.
Right. All right. So thank God we wrapped up that one fast now. We have production notes with Parry, and at the top I'll give the rundown and then you can keep going. So directed by Herbert Ross, produced by Herbert Ross and Neil Simon, written by Neil Simon, music by David Shire, cinematography by David M. Walsh, distributed by 20th Century Fox. Release date was March 25th, 1983, running time of 98 minutes. And at the box office, it grossed roughly, 17 million? Does that seem right? 17.6.
How much did it cost to make?
I don't think it cost that much. So not that it was a box office smash by any means, but it didn't do too shabby. On IMDb, it's got a rating of 6.6 and 75% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's listed as or considered as a flop. And then, like Matthew Broderick's War Games that same year was a big hit.
Well, because Neil Simon's stuff was always like a high-grossing adventure. I mean, it wasn't for him. It's not really listed as something that's huge. Although, if you really look at it, it's the ending of his relationship with Mason, but the very beginning of his relationship with Broderick, because at the same time he was cast in. Oh, sorry. This is production notes that I'm stomping all over.
Okay.
I'm going to continue.
That's, it's a nice turnaround.
Is it? Well, you're going to take over soundtrack smashes, so that's how that works. So it's an interesting thing that one thing is ending while another is beginning, because Neil Simon and Matthew Broderick really have like a love affair after this. He's cast in Brighton Beach Memoirs, and he was actually doing that at the same time as this movie. Matthew Broderick was also doing War Games, which was getting released later that year in 83. So there was a lot going on with Matthew Broderick and also Neil Simon, in that he was then also cast in Biloxi Blues, the play, and then in the film. And I feel like they've done more. The Odd Couple, Matthew Broderick has done on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's like one or two more Neil Simon references in Matthew Broderick.
I forget how much Broadway Broderick has done.
Oh, Broderick's done a ton of Broadway. I mean, that's really where he was sort of found, was on Broadway. And then film, and then Max Dugan, and then really War Games sort of teetered him over. And then by Ferris Bueller, forget it, I guess everybody has really known him. Oh, I don't remember really. I remember Do You Want to Play a Game? I guess I do remember more War Games than I think I
forget that he was the voice of Simba.
Was he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. That's of older Simba.
I know, and he's still married to Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah, they're still together.
Interesting.
Didn't work out with Jennifer Grey, I guess.
No, didn't work out with Jennifer Grey. I mean, once somebody's played your sister, really, is that ever going to work out? It's kind of gross.
Oh, that's something we need to research, is how many actors who have played siblings
have dated.
Yeah.
That's nasty.
Well, they weren't really siblings.
I mean, I know what you're saying, but acting, I mean, method acting, you have to hate that person. You have to loathe that person, which I guess you have to love that person in order to loathe that person. But
well, it's kind of like your point about actors that don't like each other doing good love scenes.
But you're not doing a love scene with your brother or sister.
Well, no. But
so how does that even make any sense?
It does somehow.
Because it's acting?
Exactly.
But you're not acting in your relationship. You can't be tonguing somebody down and then pretty much going on and then being like, I hate you. I don't understand like that connotation.
Sorry.
Are you dying?
I can never watch Ferris Bueller the same way again.
Well, I'm just saying, like, how do you go from A to B? Like, I understand how you can go from hating somebody to go ahead and saying, fuck, it's my job. I got to put on my big boy pants or my big girl pants and make out with this person and to make it believable. I understand that transition, but I don't understand the transition from, having sexual relations with somebody and then pretending that they're your sibling. Like, that distinction is, that distinction is different. No?
Sure. I just, now every time I watch a movie with siblings, I'm going to be like, I wonder if they went out.
God, I hope not. I mean, I know that's how you meet people sometimes through work. And then I wonder if you went out before or after. So, like, were you lusting that person when they were basically screaming at you like their sister or brother?
Maybe that's the turn on.
Really? That's also disgusting. So now that we've decided that incest is not best, we can move on to your section of production notes.
Can we really move on from that?
I don't know. I think we need to. I don't even think. I think
I need another sip of beer.
No, I don't think so. I think we need to move on because I gotta wrap this shit up. I gotta get up early.
Well, speaking of Broderick and not his sister / lover, I did think it was a really interesting piece of information that Broderick's father.
Oh, wow. We just went from happy to fucking dead.
Right?
This is really what you do? You just bring everybody down. You recognize this, right? This is your doing. So everyone get ready to be sad.
Ask anyone at work. I'm really good at it.
Oh, my God. Get ready to be sad.
That's why I don't have a candy jar on my desk. So
I bought you one. You always should make friends with candy. Always.
I'm just going to keep plastic spiders in it or something. So.
So fucking morbid.
It's always Halloween. So.
Note everyone, including my family. This is really Parry. He is truly morbid and hates people and doesn't want to give them candy.
Don't give me away. I hide it well around them.
No, but you just said it on our podcast. You think they don't listen?
I don't think they listen.
They do listen.
Still?
Biggest audience is in Florida. Just saying. Yes.
Then your family's bigger than I thought.
Yourself away.
So back to the depressingness. Matthew Broderick's father, who was also an actor, which I admit I did not know, and had been in a lot of cool stuff like Dog Day Afternoon. He and Alice's Restaurant, all kinds of stuff. But he died during the filming of this, and Robards and Broderick actually kind of connected because Robards had known Broderick's father, James Broderick, and kind of helped him through it. And so we were talking about heaviness and informing the role. And also I think maybe that helped that connection between Robards and Broderick because he does take on a very grandfatherly role in the film. And they do seem to have this genuine connection with each other. And so I think that probably did help them connect that way. Another really great thing about it was Charlie Lau, who is the baseball coach that Dugan hires for Michael, and to help him because he can't hit worth a damn, and he helps him to get prepped for the big game. And Lau is actually a famous baseball player and batting coach. He's one of the most well known from his era in terms of batting coaches. So I actually thought that was really, really cool. It seemed like it was a real person when I was watching it, not just an actor. But I didn't realize that he'd been a catcher for like the Tigers and the Braves and the Orioles and that he had been a batting coach. So I thought that was pretty cool that they actually brought Charlie Lau on to be the, what was it? He was with the White Sox in the film.
And he was actually with the White Sox as a hitting coach. Yeah,
so I thought that was a really neat touch there, that they didn't just have someone play him. They actually had him. And he has a pretty long scene in it, and he's pretty fun in that scene, actually. I guess he just... they probably just directed him to do what he does in his job, because he'd be like, that's good, I like it. Come on, dummy, you can hit that. And it was fun. So what's really fascinating about this cast, though, is that just about everyone who in this movie has worked a really full career. Even if they weren't well-known people, you're going to know their faces if you scroll through on IMDb and just look at just about anyone like Mrs. Litke, Dodie Goodman. She's been in 1,000,001 TV shows and movies, and you will recognize her voice. Or Billy Bird, who played the woman at the shoe store when Nora's car gets stolen. You'll know her voice immediately. And she's been in 100 different things. And like I said, you can just scroll through this list and find any name, almost any name on here, and you'll be like, oh, this person was in, all these TV shows, or they were a stunt person. It seems like the police officers in here were stunt people, and one of them played the Gorn in the original Star Trek series, and there were a couple surprising ones who have done a ton. The one who played Celia in the classroom sequences, she actually has done all kinds of things and is a speaker and a business owner, and she's just really impressive if you look at her whole story here. Her name is Lydia Nicole, and I admit I did not know her, but she's done so much. And as I mentioned earlier, David Morse, who was in like the Langoliers, and he's in 12 Monkeys, and that's really the one I always remember. I think anyone of my age remembers the guy who carried the virus. He's the policeman who is taking her statement, and you don't even see his face in Max Dugan. But the big one was Devereaux White. Do you know who that is?
No.
You remember the kids at the end that he pays for the baseball because he wants that game ball, that home run ball that Michael hits out of the park?
Yeah.
Well, one of the boys is Devereaux White, and he was Argyle in Die Hard, who drives the limo and is...
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And I have to comment that there was the Comedy Central roast of Bruce Willis. He said that he is settling the argument once and for all, and that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie.
Bullshit.
Well, fuck him. It is a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie.
I don't care what anyone says.
During Christmas, there are Christmas trees, there are Christmas parties, there are Christmas songs being sung, whatever. Though, if those three things or one of those three things occurs, it becomes a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
If it is shown repeatedly during Christmas, it is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I don't care what Willis says. I don't care if McTiernan comes out against that. I don't care if Hans Gruber comes back from the dead to say it's not a Christmas movie. It is a fucking Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie.
Damn straight.
That's right.
That's why I love you.
Oh, because I'm intelligent?
Because you agree that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And then there's a list of other reasons as well.
I know.
But that's high on it.
You're so funny. Soundtrack smashes with Parry, not Joe, because I have nothing to say.
Well, there are only 2 songs in the movie that I remember. And it is the theme song that is played at the beginning and the end. And I think one time somewhere in the middle. And the song is played at a really interesting point with the intro, where they do this great animated intro where Max Dugan is walking through pieces of Nora's life as a teacher, of his life as a crook and as a gambler, and there's a number of different pieces there as he's walking in. So it's a cool sequence. But the song I like is the part when Michael takes a cab home and they have sort of this Sanford and Son remix that they do, and in just that one scene, and that's the one I like. I don't even know if that track has a name. I couldn't find it anywhere, but that's the one I'm picking for my soundtrack smash.
Great. That can be ours together. It's very difficult. I think 83, you see the birth of a lot of really awesome soundtracks, and not to have one is probably one of the biggest downfalls, I feel like, for the movie.
Well, they didn't lean on music to carry it. They went strictly with acting and script, and there are no sequences where the movie
and I think that Neil Simon does that often.
Because it's very stagey.
I understand that, and I respect that decision. Simultaneously, I just feel like it would only have added. It would have added to the movie. That's my opinion.
I do have to ask, too, what was with Max Dugan's deep throat / sex offender stereotype, black trench coat, black hat, dark sunglasses that he wears everywhere when he's out. I thought he was supposed to not draw suspicion to himself. Like if he'd put on a gray cardigan and carried around some Werther's Originals, maybe he would have just looked like anybody's grandpa. But he looks like Deep Throat as he's walking around.
My grandfather never carried Werther's Originals, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I'm saying if he's trying to look like a stereotype grandfather. But he looks very shady and sketchy in that outfit, and he's like watching Michael at baseball practice in this outfit. I thought someone would call the cops on him because he looks like he's, scouting out kids to attack.
Maybe it's fall. I'm just saying. And pedophiles rarely look like that. FYI.
Fall in Los Angeles.
The coach is more likely to be a pedophile than the guy in the trench coat. I am just saying.
That's another actor in this movie who was in 1,000,001 things is the coach. Yeah, he's been in a ton of things.
He's so random.
And his voice in even more.
So this is the section where we would have wrapped it up nicely by you asking me why I decided to show you this movie. But you already did that part.
Well, I have a new section.
Oh, do you? Okay. Yes. That's news to me.
Yes.
And everyone else. What is the news section, Barry?
It's Parry's improbable plot ideas. And this movie seemed to have some things in it that I think might have been secret plots in the movie, though they're highly improbable. That was what the writer and director intended.
This section, but go ahead.
Oh, it won't be a usual section.
Oh, it's just the today section?
It's just today, because I thought that this movie there was something else going on for me in this movie, and...
Yeah, a divorce. Sorry. That's the truth, no?
Well, I thought that the use of philosophy in the film was one of two things. It was either just a simple way to try and give...
context,
to give Dugan some depth and to make him seem more interesting, and that would have been fairly thin. But then I started to think about maybe it's a way to show, maybe it's really brilliant, and it's a way to show that he is always scamming and he just can't help it. And the way he does it, the way he gets in people's heads, is he's using these pieces of philosophy that he's learned. And if you notice the way he talks...
Of course, because if a smart person said it, then isn't it obviously smart and true?
But I'm saying he talks in circles and riddles, and he always seems to be gaslighting them at points when he says to Nora, maybe I'm not your father, or maybe... maybe I'm your father, but you're not my daughter.
Oh, you mean gaslighting and manipulating people? No, we don't know anybody who does this at this point. And it's now going to turn political, so let's not.
That's not even where I was heading with it, even though I agree. Is just that I started to think that, maybe that was an intentional piece put in there to show that maybe the story he tells Michael, because there's a really interesting sequence in the middle of the movie where he does something that you see in plays and movies a lot, where he tells Michael a lie. He tells him that he is another character who knew Max Dugan in jail and that he watched him die in jail.
Because Nora didn't want him to know that he was Max Dugan.
But she told him at that point, tell him everything. Tell him the whole story. Oh, yes,
tell him the whole story.
She said, come out with it at this point.
Well, he doesn't know how not to lie because he's lied for so long.
And that's what I'm saying, is that he tells him a story about how he...
Yes, he's a con artist.
Right. But what I'm saying is maybe he is not Max Dugan. Maybe he actually is that character he's describing who watched Max Dugan die and promised him. She doesn't recognize him at the beginning.
But she does recognize him. It's not like...
She always seems suspicious of him, even when he says things like...
So you're thinking that Max Dugan really isn't Max Dugan, and you're totally... No! Don't overthink the movie.
I think maybe.
No.
Well, then there's one further.
No. Neil Simon is still alive. Fucking Neil Simon. I know you're 91 years old, but you've got to clarify this shit. Somebody get on the phone with Neil Simon.
Yes, because my other theory is really out there, is that Max Dugan is actually dead and that he has come back as some type of guardian angel for them and brought them money.
High on crack. Seriously.
Well, you notice that...
Stop the insanity.
Notice that when Sutherland's character tells her he's looked into it, and the mob says they're after him, would they ever admit that they had already killed him? If they'd already gotten rid of him, they wouldn't be, we don't know where this Dugan character is. He stole from us and he disappeared. We're still looking for him.
Okay, don't you think that the improbability of all of these things is really just improbable, and that the more likely scenario is that it's exactly the way in which it was written? Yes.
You think I might be overthinking it?
I think you might be overthinking it. I think that you now made my head hurt, and I'm done. I'm done.
Also,
Jesus Christ.
do you think he's really dying, or do you think he's just brought them money to
No, that motherfucker is
assuage his
dying.
guilt?
No.
You don't think he's... Because he says at one point, I really messed up. I should have gone to Brazil and just fornicated through the rest of my life.
No, I think he actually is dying, and I think he wanted to go ahead and try to come back and make it right.
I don't know. I still have my doubts. I have my questions. I think
you're crazy.
But I
I think it's really simplistic. I think you've now overcomplicated a very easy, straightforward fucking movie.
I do think the point of it was, though, that you really
I
can't...
feel like you're gaslighting me.
That you can't trust much of what he says. He even says at one point, my word isn't worth diddly poo. And I feel like he is... There is truth in all of it, but that he's an unreliable narrator of his experience in life. What I would love to see is a prequel that tells how Max Dugan went to prison.
There's no prequel that's going to happen.
No, because Robards has long ago left us.
We're done with that.
Yeah.
Yes,
sadly.
the time has passed.
Sadly, because he was...
The time has come.
What about a reboot?
To talk about many things. Fuck you with the reboot. I hate 80s reboots. I think that is the worst freaking idea I've ever heard of in my life.
We'll make it a musical this time, though.
Now you're gaslighting me, and I hate you. I'm done. And thank you all for listening and reading and reviewing and subscribing to our podcast. If you haven't, then please, this is our shameless self-promo because I'm taking control and I'm ending this podcast. Shameless self-promo. So if you haven't, please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. Check out our website at youhaven'tseenwhatmovie.com, as well as our social media, Insta, Facebook, Twitter, at youhaven'tseenwhatmovie.
And where can they find Max Dugan, the movie? Is it available online?
So it actually is available online. It's available on Amazon. You can actually rent it if you want to, I think for like $2.99 or something. I think there are limited editions of not even VHS. I have it on like old school.
Oh, I know.
Old school, like big case VHS.
Yeah, big box.
Big box, because it was one of my favorites growing up. But they did briefly put out the DVD, I think.
How many times did you watch it growing up?
I watched it a bunch of times growing up.
Yeah.
I really love the movie because it was so damn straightforward and simplistic and not overthought. As Parry has led you all to believe, it is just a good time, vibey feeling with Matthew Broderick and Donald Sutherland and the rest of the cast.
And in closing it, I do have to say that it was a really wonderful surprise because I had seen it sitting on our bookshelf for years now, and I was curious about it, but not curious enough because I didn't know anything about it. And as with many of the films that you've showed me, I was really surprised by how much I liked it and how truly and deeply frustrating it is that a film like this is so unknown. I mean, how many Rush Hour movies do we get? And wait a minute, now let me choose one with more white people. How many Die Hards do we get? And we don't get more Max Dugans. I mean,
well, it's just a different thing. I think the 90s were just like late 80s, early 90s were like this era of like sci-fi war movies, right?
Yeah.
So we're just all about that. And these feel-good movies sort of went away by the wayside a little bit. Everyone was sort of over like the Disney-esque movies, and then you moved into more animated Disney movies, and then now we're moving back out of that whole like family time atmosphere. And that's kind of what Neil Simon gave you. He just gave you a lot of like, hey, there's some family conflict. Sometimes it seems more realistic than this. Like this is a little bit more left field for him.
Because it's not so sappy as like a Hallmark Channel movie.
No, it's not at all. It's just still a good family movie. And I think that it's just underrated, as so many often are, right? Especially if you're not a straightforward comedy, which this is not. This is just clever freaking banter, as only Neil Simon can do it. Truthfully,
from what I saw on a parent site, a little too much cursing for some parents, but a little too much use of the GD, as one said.
I think that if they're listening to our podcast, this isn't a problem. So, I mean, it is. It's a great little feel-good movie. And if you are a fan of Matthew Broderick or Donald Sutherland or Jason Robards, then you should definitely or Neil Simon in general, you should watch this movie.
Even if you're not, even if you've only seen Donald Sutherland as like the bad guy, you'd want to see him in this and Ordinary People, but that's one we'll watch another time. But yeah, it's easy to forget what he did, or that Robards also played a few jerks, like in Philadelphia.
Yes.
And
now we're wrapping it up.
Yes.
So your recommendation would be for people who haven't seen it to see the movie.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, and you don't really have to prep yourself much for it. It's not like you have to have the lights just right or the music level just right. It's a great
popcorn movie. It's an hour and a half of your life. I mean, you spend enough time on social media that the hour and a half of your life isn't anything, and you probably spend more than $2.99 if you're on your phone anyway, ordering some shit off of Amazon. So you might as well order this off Amazon.
And it's well worth seeking out. It really is.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, thank you all for listening to You Haven't Seen What, and thanks for checking out our website and checking out the extras. We really appreciate you. And those who subscribe and listen to us drone on and argue as only married couples can, as Parry gaslights me every single week.
Only sometimes?
Exactly.
And sometimes it's not even intentional.
Liar. So remember, as he drinks another, it's so annoying.
Be kind.
Try not to kill your husband, and rewind. Until next time, y'all. Bye. Such a dick. I fucking hate that sound. It's so annoying that you're slurping.
Remember the Swedish fish.
Fuck you. It's Swedish fish next week.
I can't turn it off.
Turn it off.
I can't turn around in this new setup.